at this level of football, you need to try and be as competitive as possible, but to do that you need a bit of financial help in terms of who you can attract at the club. I think the gap year on year, last couple of years, has been difficult, in all honesty. I think the gap between ourselves and maybe the other clubs in the Premier League it's got bigger in terms of finances, and this year it's caught up with us. And it's been really, really difficult. But I think you can quickly shift that when you win a game of football. So yeah, you could see that in terms of performances, individual moments in games, but I do believe you can shift that fairly quickly with a couple of wins on the bounce. But that was where the problem lay, because it was difficult to get at. If you look at the one constant that's been missing throughout the season, it's consistency. There's been some good moments in games, but again, consistency within games and then consistency on a week-to-week basis. So the bigger the hole that you kind of find yourself in, the harder it is to get out, and that's kind of where we've been. At the start of the season, I knew it was going to be difficult. I've sat and said that to you guys. There's no trying to absolve myself of any blame here, because I think I've got to take accountability and responsibility, but there's a lot of off-field issues the last couple of years that's had a huge impact on the playing budget, and then that playing budget has a huge impact on who you can actually attract to the football club, and in turn it's got a huge impact on who you can keep at the football club. I think year in year we've had a pretty big turnaround of players year on year, and it becomes more difficult as the season go on. I think Livingston have never been in the Premier League for 6 years in its existence, Brian, and I think you've got to kind of strip it back, and I know it's hard at times with the raw emotion in football, but I think we've overachieved the last 6 years. We're a championship club based on budget at best, based on fan base at best, and we've managed to keep the club in the Premier League for 6 years. I think that's huge testament to the staff, players, former players, and staff and players at the club just now. So I think you've got to make sure when you're judging, you're showering a dose of realism in there also, and I genuinely do believe that. But I do think this year the budgets kind of came down the last couple of years, stripped, and I think other clubs have been throwing money at their budgets, and there's other clubs playing well where that gap was a wee bit tighter. I think that gap's got even bigger year on year, especially if I'm honest, since COVID. For me, I kind of spoke about it, I speak about it privately. I've kind of had less and less to do with the off-field stuff over the last 3-4 months to try and keep my head and keep my focus on try to keep us in the Premier League. But for me, if you'd say to us, I think first and foremost, since I've came into Livingston 10 years ago, I don't think there's never been a court case. Every year on year, there's been someone fighting with someone, directors. I came in and directors were fighting. So there's never not been that off-field issue. It's just grew since COVID, if I'm honest. I think for Livingston Football Club to move forward, it needs clear ownership structure. Now at this point in time, there is a clear ownership structure with Bay Cup, but again, that's getting contested in court. So whatever way that court case goes, I think Livingston Football Club, forget all the individual shareholders, directors, staff, whatever you want, it needs a clear ownership model going forward. For me, I've been very, very loyal to Livingston, but they've been very, very loyal to me. I think I'm in here, I'm working every day, I know how hard it is, I know how hard it's been. Would I like me and my staff to get the opportunity to try and take us back to the Premier League? Of course I would, but that kind of falls out of my hand. That's not always going to be me. I think for day one, when I came in the football club, I've been honest. I said, whether I'm going to be at Livingston Football Club will not be my decision, it'll be made by other people. So whether obviously get Sunday's game out the road and then we need to sit and regroup and reevaluate. But I think in modern day football, I think it's very, very easy to jump in the bandwagon when you're not been walking in these shoes and judge from the outside. It's easily sitting as an external observer judging the inside. I think it's really, really difficult. If you go round and you were to ask people in football, I think most people would say Livingston have overachieved the last 6 years, and we're probably a championship club at best in terms of financing fan base. We've not really grew that over the years. You were hoping year and year of being in the Premier League, that was going to help your commercial, your turnover's going to increase. It never really worked like that. Over the years the turnovers gradually came down, but that's probably since post-COVID. But I think a lot of football clubs are similar. So it's been difficult. You're in the Premier League and the last couple of years the budget's coming down, your income's coming down. It's made it harder for clubs like ourselves, clubs our size, to compete at that level. Yeah, but I think you look at every other championship club, they're in the same boat. Yeah. So it's like I could be sitting here moaning about that, but the disappointing thing for us, our business model the last 6 years in the Premier League's been based on away fans. You've not really grew your home fans, your season base, so your business model that kept us in the Premier League was based on away fans. You're going to lose that next year. So I think this year, and I know for a fact, and people keep talking about, he keeps talking about budgets, but I don't think until you're sitting in these shoes you understand one of the main driving primary factors in success at a football club is your playing budget. That is one of your main driving forces. Now, it's not the only one, but it plays a huge part. And
it's the biggest part, I would say.
Like Brian, it plays a huge part on the product that you can put in the park, and that's going to have a huge part on performance, right? I know today, our budget this year was probably third, fourth in the Championship in Scotland. Yeah. I know for a fact. So we had a top 4 Championship budget playing in the Premier League, right? But it's probably been similar other years, depending what club was in the Premier League. Kilmarnock, Hibs, Hearts, whoever it was, Dundee United. Next year, the projections have been done on the commercial income, on our turnover, what we feel that's going to be, and I think we'll have a competitive budget in the the Championship. There's probably going to be 3-4 clubs that are going to be 20%, 30% higher than where we find ourselves. But Brian, when you put that 20-30%, there's a big difference between 900,000 and 1.2 million in terms of that 300,000, 20%, 30%.
4 players, 5 players.
Yeah, but there's a big difference in that between 1.1, 1.2 million and 2 million, 2.5 million, 8 million, 10 million, 25, 35 million. There's a huge difference there. So do I believe you can make up the difference in terms of a couple of $100,000 a year? Do I believe you can make up that in terms of your football and performance, your coaching? I do. I think it's more realistic going into the Championship with maybe, let's say, 4, 5, 6, roughly in and around that area, and trying to compete and trying to get in the top 4 and trying to get back to the Premier League. I think that's achievable. I think the last couple of years at Livingston, there's probably the closest team to us has got double our budget, and that's the closest team to you, and it's become really, really difficult to try and compete at that level. It's kind of treading water the last couple of years, and it's caught up with us as a club. It's caught up with us. Yeah, but it's hard, Brian, to look at kind of the positivity there, if I'm really honest, because you're living in the moment. I'm living in the moment. It's still very rough for Wednesday's result, going into Sunday's game. The club, we need a massive reset. We probably need a massive reset on and off the park, if I'm really honest. And we managed to get an investor into the club that was willing to underwrite the losses this year, and he'd spoke to John and Dave privately and said I could maybe draw some commercial income, bring some more income into the club. The club needs a massive reset. I think off-field issues are going to take care of themselves, and I think then that's going to put Livingston Football Club in a better footing going forward, assuming everything goes the way that the people at the club hopes it's going to go. It's been a huge journey, and for large parts of it, Brian, I can only speak about me. I've been here 10 years. 2 relegations we've had, 2 promotions, 2 top 6 finishes, missed out in top 6, last kick of the ball twice, last game of the day, match day 33, Dundee United away last year, Motherwell at home the year before, which was last kick of the ball just about in a cup final. So I think I could argue with anybody to say that that's not been a successful tenure. I would argue with anybody that's not been. So relegation's a massive negativity, it's massive adversity, but it doesn't need to be the end of that journey. I think it's important during times of adversity that everybody sticks together. We're a small community club. I think we all need to get together and try and go again and try and bring the club back to that journey again. Try and take the club back to the Premier League, which is no easy task. There's some big clubs in that league, and there's clubs trying that year on year. Ayr United, Morton's, Partick Thistles. There's clubs down there been trying that year and year at Raith Rovers, and it's no easy. It's no easy, but when I strip that, I can only speak about my tenure, I can only speak about my time at Livingston. 2 relegations, 2 promotions, 2 top 6, missed top 6 twice, last match day 33 and a cup final. You need to put it into perspective. I think it's important that you put it into perspective. I'm very pragmatic in how my mind works. It's very logical, believe it or not. I know some might debate that, but I'm very pragmatic, and I think I'm very fair and honest, and I look at it and I go, there's another relegation to the CV, but does it make me better? I think it does. Does it give the club a chance to kind of clear the decks? I think it does. I think we needed to do that over the last 2 years in terms of the playing staff at the club, but we've not had that opportunity to do so, because it's what you can do at a football club ultimately is going to be dictated by your resources. But when you actually strip it all back, and this is not just me, because there's some other personnel that need a massive contribution and credit to that success with the former players, former managers, former coaches. It's not just me, but it's during my time at the club, so that's where I'm referring to. So I think when you look at it, you asked any Livingston supporter 10 years ago, this is what's going to happen, are you happy with it? I think it would be someone who's been illogical or thinking with emotion that would say they wouldn't have took that, because in my eyes I would think that's been a fairly successful period for Livingston Football Club. Throw in a couple of players that have been capped for Scotland at the same time. Liam when he left here, Decky when he left here, Big Lyndon, he'd left here but he hadn't played one game for QPR at that point, so it was on the back of the success they've had at Livingston Football Club. Craig Halkett, Nicky Devlin, me, Alan Foss, there's a lot of players in that journey stepped on and progressed their own footballing careers. So I think when you strip it all back, I think for me, and fans don't want to hear this really, do they? They don't want to hear me sitting talking about stuff like this, but I think you've got to be a realist in this, Brian. You've got to be pragmatic in your approach and your mindset, and I think we can look at it as success, but I hope the journey's not finished. I'm the one that walks away. There's been a lot of kick in the teeth this year, a lot of kick in the guts, but I jump back up and I'm ready to go again, and I'm ready for the next fight, whatever that may be. If it's with Livingston, hopefully brilliant. If it's not with Livingston, so be it. I need to take that one in the chin and move on. Nothing. Big Isle pulled out on Wednesday. He's kind of been playing with a wee niggle and knock. So I can't see the bench being any different from what it was. A couple of boys need an assessment from Wednesday's game, but I don't think there's anything that's going to change kind of the squad from what it was on Wednesday.